Hey, hello everyone. Today I'll be explaining what's new in 12.5 in CCM. So in 12.5, we started supporting native parsers through CCM. Before explaining what is native parser and how to use inside CCM, right? First, let me explain how we used to manage native parsers earlier and why we need to manage it through CCM, right? Yeah. So let me go to any service. So till 12.4, we used to manage Lua native parsers from here. As so right now we as CCM is enabled and these all parsers are managed by CCM. That is, we introduced this warning here. This service is managed by Paul CCM. Click here to manage the service. So as you can see, earlier we used to manage these system parsers from here. You can enable it, disable it, and even you can disable it on meta level as well, right? So if I click on right now it is disabled, but if you click it this and it will list down all the metas, then you can choose enable and disable. That's how we use it in legacy. Now, so what was the problem? Why we started managing it through CCM in 12.5, right? So if you notice one thing, like there are some live parsers which does the same job, and they have equivalent system parsers, right? That also does the same job. They eventually they both produce the same set of metas. So if both are enabled, it will uh, it will produce duplicate set of metas. That is an overhead, right? You will see a lot of metas getting generated, right? So to just give an example, I will just take the example like this. This is the AIM passes. Suppose that you have one decoder on which AIM is enabled, and that decoder is managed by CCM as well. And in CCM, you created a policy which includes this AIM underscore Lua. And once you publish the policy, AIM underscore Lua will be enabled, and this is already enabled. So these both start producing same set of metas, uh, the duplicate set of metas, right? So that was the problem, and the workaround was a bit tedious, right? Like you have to disable CCM, and then you have to go back to the service page, uh, and you have to find which native parser is generating duplicate set of metas. Then you have to decide whether you want to disable the Lua parser or whether you want to disable the equivalent native parser to stop generating that duplicate set of metas. Now, how CCM tries to solve this problem? We are bringing these native parsers inside CCM. So there are two parts here. Like I'll explain how to use it. So there are two parts here. One is the fresh install, and the other one is the upgrade thing. So on upgrade, what we do is, let me explain the upgrade scenario first. So on upgrade, what we do is like so there are two possibilities here. One, the customers who don't use CCM, or the other customer who is using CCM and have some policies and groups created. The customer who don't use CCM and prefer to use CCM, once they upgrade to 12.5, we will fetch all the data from here, from this service, like take case AIM alerts, OMR, BGP underscore Lua, everything we will take it from here. We will take the values as well, and we will create an automated policy. So you will see automatically generated policy here, which will have the name as your service name, and that service will have all the native parsers and its related configurations. So if it is so right now we are fetching all the enabled set of native parsers. So if take like to just give an example, we will so right now AIM underscore Lua is enabled, so we will fetch it. But if you do see a parser called entropy, right, if it is disabled, then we won't fetch it. So all the enabled things, we will fetch it from service and we'll create an automated policy. Then customer can, after upgrade, customer can review that policy. And if they are okay with whatever we already added in policy, they can just review it and publish it. Or even they can edit the policy and then they can add few rules, or I mean, they can add and remove contents from the policy. And based on their need, they can publish policy. Again, the flow is quite similar for edit. I mean, this native parsers also, if you, just to give an example, like suppose this is, take an example, like suppose, assume this particular policy is automatically created by source server. So now I am into 12.5. Now, as a customer, I can edit it. And edit is quite similar. Edit is exactly similar to what we have in 12. Now, this will obviously, this is like our demo policy ISO. I already added a few approvals and all. But suppose if it is like you don't have any application rule and all, so you are free to add anything. You can do whatever you want. Like you can probably add a few approvals, or you can remove few passes if you don't like. Uh, you want to add equivalent Lua passes, that also you can do. Like suppose this is the HTTP parser. Now you don't want a native parser, you want equivalent Lua parser. So I mean, you can do it from here. You can probably go to parsers, find the HTTP. Okay, so this is HTTP_Lua. You can add it here, and you can remove the HTTP native parser. So we are giving more flexibility to customer. They can decide whether they want to go with the Lua parsers or the native parser. Okay, so basically the difference between these two is like native parsers are a bit faster and Lua parsers are a bit slower, but Lua parsers you will get a frequent update, which you won't get in native parsers, right? So we recommend to use Lua parsers if it is already available for any native parser. So you can see the mapping here. I mean, this is having all the mappings related to all the Lua parsers. So just to give an example, DHCP is having Lua equivalent called DHCP_Lua. IRC is having its equivalent IRC over host_Lua. I mean, you can go through this, and based on your need, you can choose Lua parsers. So this is how the upgrade flow looks like for the customer who is not using CCM. And again, suppose there is a customer who already started using CCM and they already have policy created, and policy could be in any state, like failed state or anything, failed, published, partial, anything. What we does is like just to give an example, just to like assume this is our system in 12.4, and both policies are in published state. So once you upgrade to 12.5, these policies will get updated by the native parsers. And how we do it? It is similar. Like we will go to service. So from service, we will fetch all the enabled native parsers, and we will include in your policy, and we'll change the status of policy. It will change to unpublished. And here we will see one. Here we'll start showing triangle icon, which will tell the customer like why this policy is unpublished, right? I mean, it will be a surprise for a customer, like when they upgrade from 12.4 to 12.5 and they see their policy is getting unpublished, right? Earlier it was in some different state. So that icon will tell like we added native parsers in your policy. Please review it before publishing it. So what they need to do is they can click on this policy here and they can review it from here. Like they can choose like the parsers or application rules and all. And if they decide to change anything, like they can hit edit policy, and again the flow is similar. So that's all we can do from like that's all for the upgrade flow. One important thing I want to mention before going forward, like there are few crucial native parsers which doesn't have any equivalent Lua parsers. So we are hiding those parsers from here. so that these should be enabled by default. Just take an example of this alerts. It doesn't have any Lua equivalent. And if you read it, this parsers enable or disable the application rule. If you disable it entirely, the rules are not evaluated at all. If you disable the keys, they are evaluated, but that key won't be registered. Same case goes with log parsers and other important parsers like this and GRE. So this is an extension of network parser. It is required exact information. So we identified these these 7 parsers. We are hiding from CCM. These parsers will be enabled by default. So log parsers, feed parsers, alerts, GUIP, VL, VLAN, GRE, network, and system. These parsers, you won't see it inside your policy creation wizard. So what I meant is, like, if you create a policy, this. So if you go to parsers, you can apply filter from here. If you just want to see the native parsers, or you can just want to select all the native parsers. So right now, you won't see alerts or what I mentioned, these parsers like log parser, feed parsers, alerts. So these things won't be reflected here, and these will be enabled by default. Now coming back to once you decided to once you decided policy looks good, I'm done with content selection. Now the next step is to publish policy, right? So publish is like, I'll go back to my old policies. They have the groups. Let me edit it. So on upgrade, you will see some, you will see some auto selected content, and you can add or remove, as I said earlier. Once you are done with this step, go to next. Select your desired set of group, and then save and publish. But before going to that, there is a warning here. The native parsers, which is part of your policy. Okay, the native parser, which is part of your policy, will be enabled, and rest, which are not part of your policy, will get disabled. This is crucial. Okay, so make sure to select and enable all the important native parsers apart from the 7. Obviously, those won't be visible here, but if you need any parsers to work, if you need any native parsers to work, just make sure to select it in your policy. Then only hit the save and publish. As soon as you click on this save and publish, it will start deploying content. And again, there was no changes, so that is why it didn't go to names. But yeah, so it will deploy all of your native parsers, which was part of your policy, and enable those parsers, and rest native parsers, which was already present in your policy, and maybe it was in enabled state or disabled state. It will disable all the native parsers, which is not present in this policy. So again, I'm pointing this out. Make sure before publishing, make sure all the important parsers are part of your policy.